Welcome to Inland Empire Alive, bringing you issues, events, and perspectives from throughout San Bernardino and Riverside counties. I'm David Brady, and on today's show, I'll talk local journalism with Jim Rodriguez, including his time at the San Bernardino Sun and TV stations KCBS Channel 2 and KCAL Channel 9. That's today on Inland Empire Alive. Joining me now to talk about the news business is a local, Jim Rodriguez from CBS News Los Angeles. Jim, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me today.
I want to go all the way back. So you are a local, you graduated from Eisenhower High School right here in Rialto.
I did.
How did you originally get interested in local journalism, and how long ago are we talking about?
Well, I'll keep it brief for you. So I started journalism in high school. My teacher was very instrumental, Wendy Better, who was with the Rialto School Districts. And became a city editor or an editor for the local high school paper. Well, during my junior year at 17, the weekly city editor for the local paper reached out to me and said, "Hey, do you want to cover schools, school board, that sort of stuff?" So of course I said, yeah, and I started there, the weekly paper, and then I moved on to the San Bernardino Sun, the daily. But yeah, it all started in my high school years.
What appealed to you about that as making a career out of that?
For me, I live
There's a very unglamorous, when reporters start out, they don't realize a lot of times it's very unglamorous. Like you said, it's school boards, it's night cops, it's, the police blotter. It's very unsexy kind of, shoe leather work.
Yeah. Well, at that age, I embraced all of it. I thought this is great. I'm at this young age doing this. So it was very interesting for me. It was a big learning curve because, what junior in high school knows about civics and how board meetings are run, that sort of thing. So it was a quick 101, get into the business and do what you had to do. But the reason I like storytelling, I love telling good stories. Everybody has a good story. And that was it. And then also as the older I got, I realized that as a journalist, you give somebody a voice who necessarily doesn't really have it or doesn't know how to have it. So.
Well, you talked about telling stories. What are some of those stories that stand out for you from that era? And they weren't always necessarily positive ones necessarily. Sometimes it's scandal, sometimes it's crime.
Yeah, well, speaking of scandal, one of them that I remember vividly is a firefighter for the Rialto fire fighting area department, He was caught in a swingers magazine. So, here is
You can't make this stuff up,
No,
folks.
no. So, at 18 or 17 at the time, you're talking about this, and I had to go figure out, okay, what is this all about, But I knew he did wrong and that he was being disciplined and such. So I covered that. Other stories at that young age, I remember vividly, a Rialto police officer was shot and killed in the line of duty, Officer Woofley, if it rings a bell. And the story was just so sad in that his wife had been riding with him that night patrol. She's the one who called out the radio help. And here I am, at this young age trying to figure out, okay, what does this all mean? How does this impact us as residents? So that was another one.
It's amazing that decades later, the names still stay with you.
Yeah, and I could drive by somewhere and say that's where such and such happened.
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
It's crazy.
Now, I know eventually you transitioned from newspapers to television. Talk to me about that move. And that's a big transition for a lot of journalists.
It is, yes, it was. So I had a friend working at CBS Channel 2 News in LA. We had worked at the Sun together. And she said, "Hey, we need writers. Why don't you come and write?" So went out there, started writing. And then I thought, this isn't really as fast paced as I'd like it. So I jumped onto the assignment desk and I've been there since.
Was it hard making that switch? Did they view you with suspicion? It's like, oh, this is a newspaper guy. This is a print guy. He doesn't know our ways.
Nobody really knew, thank goodness. Yeah, that they didn't. But, people helped me because, I was in there kind of learning a new.
Well, there must have been a learning curve in getting used to all the kind of technical. It's not just literally banging out some copy. It's all the technical demands of producing news, and that sort of, you're much more tied to the clock.
Yes. And, back then when I started writing, you also had to, get your tape that you wanted used and then send it into the editor for editing. And so it was a multi-step process. Now they do everything just on the computer themselves. But but I also knew that, I had colleagues that were great, that were willing to help out. And, I kind of watched and learned and listened to, the news, how they read, the copy. So I kind of adjusted my print writing to that.
When you made the move to assignment editor, what were some things you now look for in terms of assigning coverage? This is such a vast region geographically. What makes the cut in terms of, yeah, we'll cover that, no, we won't cover that?
Yeah, good question. So out here, it's a little different because it's a little slower paced, if you will, than Los Angeles. We do have the crime and whatnot and the major stories that, we will need to cover. But I also like to find stories that impact the community, the person that doesn't have a voice, like I was talking about earlier, the person who's been told they have to get rid of their 6 horses, in their area, and, what do they do? Those are stories that we kind of tend to gravitate to out here in the Inland Empire, because it really is a slower paced lifestyle still than Los Angeles.
We will have much more with Jim Rodriguez about local news right after these messages.
Join us for our weekly farmers market in San Bernardino. The farmers market is ongoing every Tuesday at Court Street Square, located at 349 Northeast Street from 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. This event features both farmers and hot food vendors. Come purchase fresh produce at the farmers market and enjoy a nutritious lunch for the day. This is a certified farmers market with fresh and quality produce grown by real farmers from the region. For more information, visit our website at sbcity.org/parks. You can also call us at 909-384-5233 or email us at recreation@sbcity.org. See you there.
Well, I'm talking with journalist Jim Rodriguez about his time both in newspapers and in television. So we were talking earlier about stories, or the impact of stories. What are some of the stories that stay with you in terms of television coverage that you assign for the Inland Empire? Much different medium. You have to think visuals.
Yes.
What sort of leads that we have tape of.
Yeah, that's a good point. When thinking of stories, you have to figure out, are we going to have good video? That's always the first question that any executive producer is going to ask you. What great video do you have to tell a story? So that's the first step. Okay, does that have that? Then you kind of just go, and then you got to be creative with your photographer, and get B-roll of, stuff that, you could talk over, that sort of thing. So as far as memorable stories out here, I'm still in my infancy back here because they started the Bureau up back again here a year ago. But LA, for example, one of the stories, a Metrolink train crash that happened in Chatsworth, deadly. I ended up finding somebody who posted a tribute to the conductors. So I reached out to them and started talking to him. And I said, oh, when's the last time you talked to your conductor friend? And he says, well, we were texting just a few minutes before the crash. Well, bam, that, got
that's
everybody.
a story.
Right. That, started a whole new thing and created laws now that they can't do that. So that was a big impact story for me that, I was able to break.
As someone who grew up in the Inland Empire, how does that inform your decisions? Does that give you an edge in being someone who knows the community, who has lived here, who understands the issues, as opposed to someone who maybe just moved here from another market as part of their, shifting kind of career, moving up the ladder?
Yes. In fact, that's why they put me out here. No, they figured out, I had, had history here. I knew the lay of the land. I had contacts still out here, from my journalist days in print. And so that was one of the reasons that they sent me out here. And of course, I love it because it's a whole different ballgame than Los Angeles assignment desk. There you're listening to hundreds of police radios, phones ringing constantly, producers, saying, hey, I need this, hey, I need that. Whereas out here in the Bureau, you kind of work at your own pace, and you kind of find those stories. You still monitor scanners, but not the, thousands of channels you do in Los Angeles.
Have you ever wanted to sort of move closer to LA and be sort of closer to the action, or do you enjoy having that sort of change of pace?
I do. Well, the older I've gotten, yes, I do. I do. Funny story about that. So we moved out here when I was in junior high from LA, and I just remember I hated it. As there's nothing out here. We were surrounded by great vineyards, in Rialto, and I thought I'm going to go back to LA. Well, I did, and I enjoyed it for a minute, and now that I'm my age and have a family and that sort of thing, and I can afford a home out here, I love being back here.
Of all the decades that you've been in news, the industry has changed so much, and not just the news industry that you work in, but just the rise of social media, all the different ways that people get news and information and disinformation and memes and, deep fakes. How do you compete with all that nowadays?
Very difficult. That's a good question. Social media now is our friend, but it's also our enemy because, we find story ideas and video, that sort of thing. But it's also our enemy in that we have to figure out if something is real, especially now with AI. AI has just opened up another can of worms for us, and try to decipher what's real and what's not. But that's where the profession has gotten a little more difficult in trying to determine that.
Is it hard sort of convincing the public that, you're bound by ethics and standards, and a lot of times, a blogger, a podcaster, someone just shooting something on Instagram is not? And do consumers of news understand those distinctions?
I don't really think they do. Of course, we also have that moniker now, from the administration that we have of the fake news. So, you're combating that, and people are very skeptical now, I think more so than they used to be of what we do. When somebody comes across and tries to pitch a story to me, I explain to them, okay, I have to go through X, Y, and Z before I could get back to you and let you know if we're going to do the story or not, simply to do all the fact checking and stuff. So they don't get that part. They think we could just put something on TV, at their, word.
Well, you mentioned that phrase, and I won't repeat it, but is it hard to see the news media criticized?
We've always been criticized, it comes with the job, I guess you could say. But
it doesn't deter you.
It doesn't, because, that's where I think we've taken that oath to be communicators, to tell stories. And, you take a lot of criticism as a journalist. So it's just another one of those criticisms.
Well, in an industry that does come in for so much criticism, not just from people in power, but often from the folks that are literally consuming your product, what, despite all of that, has been the most enjoyable part of this long career for you? Is it, like you said, shining a spotlight on folks who may not have their stories heard, giving folks, that voice?
It really is. Yeah, it really is. People, are appreciative once we do a story that helps them or tells their plight, story that makes changes for them. So to have that kind of power, if you want to call it that, is very rewarding for me.
Are you reminded on a regular basis of the impact that your stories have when folks, you see, like you said, sometimes laws get changed, sometimes lives are changed. It must be rewarding to work in a field that can have that almost immediate change in people's lives.
Yes, it is. It's very few and far between, as you probably know. But when it does come, it is very rewarding. It just gives you that, euphoria that, hey, what I did mattered. Yeah.
And where can people find your work these days? I want to make sure we give a shout out.
Yes.
It's Channel 2.
Channel 2 and Channel 9.
KCBS and Channel 9 KCAL. And how do they, it's branded together under sort of one operation now?
Yes. We used to be CBS 2 News and KCAL 9 News. We were same operation, had the same talent, the same newsroom. We've combined all that now to CBS LA. Still doing the same things that we do on the separate stations. But yeah, you can reach out to the assignment desk, email us. We're always up for news tips, calls, if they want to call the desk, don't hesitate to call because we are there to listen.
Well, Jim, thank you so much. And thank you for all you've done over the decades to keep everyone informed. It's been a pleasure having you.
Thank you for having me.
Visit iealive.com.